Most people don't break because life is cruel. They break because no one ever taught them how to train their mind. For a long time, I believed emotional strength was something you either had or didn't. I told myself I was just sensitive, that it was my personality. I reacted quickly. I overthought conversations. One careless comment could stay with me for days. I smiled on the outside, but inside I was constantly tense, replaying moments, questioning myself, feeling drained without knowing why. I saw the same struggle in people close to me. A friend who shut down whenever he was criticized, even gently. A family member who needed constant reassurance just to feel stable. A co-worker who looked confident and capable, but collapsed emotionally the moment plans changed or expectations weren't met. None of them were weak, and none of them were broken. They were simply untrained. The real shift happened when I noticed something uncomfortable. The problem was never emotion itself. The problem was reaction. Feeling sadness, anger, or fear wasn't destroying us. Letting those feelings immediately control our behavior was. We were living on autopilot, reacting instead of choosing. No one teaches us how to sit with discomfort. No one teaches us how to pause before responding. We learn how to perform, achieve, and survive on the outside, but almost nothing about how to lead ourselves on the inside. So when pressure builds, when rejection shows up, when life doesn't follow the plan, our emotions take the wheel. Here's the truth most people never hear. Emotional strength is not a personality trait, it is a skill. And like any skill, it can be trained. This audiobook is not about becoming cold, distant, or numb. It's not about suppressing what you feel or pretending pain doesn't exist. It's about learning how to feel deeply without being controlled. It's about building space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where clarity lives. That space is where freedom begins. Over the next hour, you will learn how emotionally unbreakable people think and act, not because they are special, but because they practice differently. You will hear real, human stories of people who struggled, reacted, failed, and slowly learned to train their mind instead of being ruled by it. You will learn how to stop giving other people power over your inner world. How to stay grounded when things don't go your way. How to face discomfort without running from it. And how to rebuild trust in yourself by choosing better responses, one moment at a time. This is not motivation, it is training. Quiet, practical, repeatable training. You don't need to change who you are. You don't need to become someone else. You only need to stop letting untrained emotions run your life. This practice compounds quietly, reshaping how you think, respond, and move forward daily. If you have ever felt exhausted from overreacting, tired of feeling shaken by small things, or frustrated that you are stronger for everyone else than you are for yourself, this is for you. Stay with me. Listen slowly. Let these ideas settle. Apply them daily. And if someone came to mind while listening, someone who is struggling, overwhelmed, or quietly falling apart inside, share this video with them. It may be exactly what they need to begin changing their life right now. Chapter 1. Why most people are emotionally weak without knowing it. Most people don't think of themselves as emotionally weak. In fact, many believe the opposite. They see themselves as passionate, honest, expressive, or simply real. Emotional weakness, in the popular imagination, looks like collapse, panic, or losing control in obvious ways. But in real life, it rarely looks like that. Most of the time, it hides inside behaviors that feel normal, justified, and socially accepted. It shows up as reacting too fast, taking things personally, feeling tense long after a conversation has ended, needing reassurance to feel stable, replaying words in your head late at night, losing focus because of one comment, one look, one message. None of this feels dramatic enough to label as a problem, so it goes unnoticed. and because it goes unnoticed, it never gets trained. For a long time, I believed this was just how people were wired. I told myself some people were naturally calm and others were naturally sensitive. I repeated the same sentence I heard everywhere growing up: "That's just how I am." But that sentence is one of the most dangerous lies we tell ourselves. It turns habits into identity. It freezes growth by convincing us that change would mean betraying who we are. I saw this clearly in a friend of mine. He was intelligent, capable, and driven. On the surface, he had his life together. But emotionally, he reacted in subtle, predictable ways. If someone disagreed with him, he felt attacked. If feedback wasn't delivered perfectly, he shut down. He read books about mindset, listened to podcasts, even spoke fluently about emotional intelligence, yet nothing changed. The same patterns repeated. The same reactions returned. Why? Because information does not equal training. Awareness without practice rarely leads to transformation. Emotional weakness is not a lack of feeling. It is a lack of choice. More specifically, it is the inability to choose your response under pressure. When emotions lead without guidance, behavior follows instinct, not intention. And instinct is shaped by repetition, not values. Most people live inside this reactive loop without realizing it. Something happens. An emotion appears. A reaction follows immediately. No pause, no space. Over time, this loop becomes automatic. The brain learns that every feeling requires action, explanation, defense, or escape. This is not emotional honesty. This is emotional autopilot. Autopilot feels natural. It feels fast. It feels justified. You tell yourself you're simply responding to what happened, but in reality, you're surrendering control. Every unexamined reaction hands power to whatever triggered it: a person, a situation, a memory, even a thought. I once watched a coworker unravel over a single meeting. Nothing objectively terrible happened. No one raised their voice. No one insulted him. But one vague comment was enough to shift his entire inner state. His energy dropped. His posture changed. His focus disappeared. Hours later, he admitted he had been replaying that moment again and again. That wasn't sensitivity. It was an untrained emotional reflex. Here is the uncomfortable truth. Most emotional pain is not caused by events themselves. It is caused by the meaning we attach to them without questioning it. When your mind is untrained, every emotion feels final, and every thought feels true. Every reaction feels necessary. Another reason emotional weakness goes unnoticed is because it is socially reinforced. People reward emotional reactions. They validate them. They encourage venting without resolution. Expression gets mistaken for healing, but expressing emotion without learning how to regulate it only strengthens the habit of reacting. It teaches the nervous system that intensity equals relief. You hear it everywhere. I just need to let it out. But letting something out is not the same as letting it pass. Without training, emotions don't pass. They recycle. They return in different forms, in different situations, with the same underlying pattern. Emotionally strong people are often misunderstood. They are not those who feel less. They are those who feel without being dragged. They experience anger without becoming aggressive, disappointment without collapsing, fear without freezing. This is not a personality gift. It is a trained capacity. Training always begins with awareness. You must first see how often emotions run your behavior without permission. Notice how quickly you explain yourself, how often you defend, how easily your mood shifts based on someone else's tone or reaction. These are not flaws, they are signals. Signals that your emotional system has never been taught to pause. One of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is simple. Did I choose this reaction, or did it choose me? Most people never ask this. They assume reaction equals truth. But reaction is just habit, and habits can be retrained. When emotions are untrained, they disguise themselves as personality. You say, "I'm just emotional," or "I'm just blunt," or "I'm just sensitive." But personality is not fixed. What you are really describing is repetition, and repetition can be rewired. This chapter is not about judgment. It is about responsibility. You are not at fault for what you were never taught, but you are responsible for what you continue to practice. Emotional strength begins the moment you stop excusing reactions and start examining them. There is another layer many people miss, and emotional weakness often hides behind productivity, logic, or discipline. Some people don't explode or collapse. Instead, they suppress everything and call it control. But suppression is not strength, it is avoidance, and avoidance always collects interest. When suppressed emotions surface, they do so indirectly, through resentment, through sarcasm, through passive aggression, through burnout, through sudden withdrawal. These are still reactions, they are simply delayed ones. And delayed reactions are often more damaging because they feel justified. True emotional strength is not about holding everything in. It is about holding yourself steady while emotions move through you. That steadiness does not come from willpower in the moment. It comes from practice, from repetition, from choosing awareness again and again. Yes, especially when it feels uncomfortable. Many people tell themselves they will work on emotional control once life slows down, once things are calmer, once problems are solved. But pressure is not the obstacle. Pressure is the training ground. Without resistance, nothing strengthens. So here is your first practice. For the next few days, do not try to change anything. Simply observe. Notice when an emotion appears and how quickly you act on it. Notice the urge to speak, to explain, to withdraw, to react. You don't need to suppress it. You don't need to fix it. Just name it. That awareness alone begins the training. Because the truth is simple. Emotional weakness is not who you are. It is what happens when no one ever showed you how to train your mind. And training always starts with awareness, patience, repetition, and the courage to see yourself clearly in moments that usually pass unnoticed. Chapter 2. The lie about suppressing emotions. Many people believe emotional strength means not feeling anything, staying calm, staying silent, keeping it together no matter what happens. From the outside, this looks controlled. From the inside, it often feels like pressure building behind a locked door. This is one of the most common misunderstandings about emotional control. People confuse suppression with strength. They believe that if they don't express an emotion, it disappears. In reality, suppressed emotions don't vanish. They wait. Suppression is not the absence of emotion. It is emotion pushed underground. And anything pushed underground does not die. It grows roots. I once knew a colleague who prided himself on being unshakable. He never raised his voice, never complained, never showed anger or frustration, and people admired his composure. But over time, cracks began to show. He became distant, cynical, passive-aggressive in subtle ways. He started withdrawing from conversations and responsibilities. Eventually, he burned out completely and couldn't explain why. He had done everything right, or so he thought. What he was really doing was avoiding emotion, not mastering it. Suppression teaches the nervous system that emotions are dangerous, that they must be hidden, ignored, or overridden. This creates an internal conflict. One part of you feels. Another part of you judges that feeling as unacceptable. That tension consumes energy, and over time, it drains you. True emotional strength is not about silencing emotion. It is about staying present with it without letting it take control. To understand this, you need to separate 3 different actions that often get confused: feeling, expressing, and acting. Feeling is automatic. You do not choose it. An emotion arises in response to a stimulus before logic has time to intervene. Expressing is optional. Acting is a choice. Most people collapse these steps into one. They feel something and immediately act on it, or they feel something and immediately suppress it. Both reactions come from the same place: fear of the emotion itself. Control lives in the space between feeling and action. When you suppress emotion, you skip that space. You pretend the feeling isn't there. But your body knows. Your tone changes. Your posture tightens. Your thinking becomes rigid. The emotion leaks out in indirect ways. This is why people who suppress emotions often feel emotionally numb, yet easily irritated. Calm, yet exhausted. Rational, yet resentful. Suppression doesn't remove emotional influence. It distorts it. Another reason suppression is so common is cultural conditioning. Many of us were taught early that certain emotions were unacceptable. Anger was labeled dangerous. Sadness was labeled weakness. Fear was labeled incompetence. So we learn to hide these emotions, not to understand them, but hiding is not the same as handling. Emotionally unbreakable people do something very different. They allow emotions to exist without giving them authority. They don't panic when a feeling arises. They don't rush to get rid of it. They observe it. Observation creates distance. Distance creates choice. Imagine emotion like a wave. Suppression tries to freeze the ocean. Reaction lets the wave smash into everything. Control learns how to ride it. This does not happen overnight. It requires training. And the first step in that training is changing how you relate to discomfort. Most people treat discomfort as a signal that something is wrong. Emotionally strong people treat discomfort as information. Information about values, about expectations, about boundaries, about unexamined thoughts. For example, feeling anger doesn't mean you should act aggressively. It might mean a boundary feels threatened. Feeling sadness doesn't mean you should collapse. It might mean something mattered to you. Feeling fear doesn't mean you should retreat. It might mean you are stepping into something meaningful. When you suppress emotion, you miss the message. I once struggled deeply with this myself. I believed that being in control meant never showing what I felt. I stayed quiet when something bothered me. I told myself it didn't matter. Over time, that silence turned into distance. I wasn't exploding, but I wasn't present either. Relationships felt flat. Motivation faded. I had avoided conflict, but I'd also avoided connection. That was the cost of suppression. Emotional control is not about pushing feelings away. It is about holding them without being pushed around by them. This requires patience. It requires slowing down internal reactions that have been automatic for years. It requires learning to sit with discomfort long enough for clarity to emerge. One practical shift that changes everything is this. Stop asking, how do I get rid of this feeling? And start asking, what is this feeling asking for? Not every emotion requires action, but every emotion deserves awareness. When you feel something uncomfortable, try this instead of suppressing it. Pause. Name the emotion quietly. Not dramatically, not judgmentally, just accurately. Anger, disappointment, fear, shame, frustration. Naming creates separation. Separation reduces intensity. Then notice what your body wants to do. Speak, defend, withdraw, explain, attack, run. Don't follow the urge yet. Just notice it. That moment of noticing is control. You are not denying the emotion. You are refusing to be hijacked by it. This is why emotionally unbreakable people appear calm. Not because they feel less, but because they don't rush. They don't confuse emotion with instruction. They wait. Waiting is a skill. Suppression avoids emotion. Control engages with it intelligently. There is also a deeper reason suppression fails. Emotions are stored experiences. When you suppress them repeatedly, You teach the nervous system that it is unsafe to process. Eventually, the system rebels. Through anxiety, through burnout, through sudden emotional flooding that feels overwhelming. People often say, "I don't know why I reacted so strongly." The reason is simple. You didn't react strongly to this moment. You reacted to everything you never processed before it. Training emotional control now prevents emotional explosions later. This chapter is not encouraging emotional expression without restraint. It is encouraging emotional honesty without impulsivity. There is a difference. You don't need to say everything you feel. You don't need to act on every emotion. But you do need to acknowledge them internally, quietly, clearly, without fear. Here is your practice for this chapter. For the next few days, when an uncomfortable emotion arises, do not suppress it and do not express it immediately. Pause. Name it internally. Sit with it for 10 seconds. Breathe. Then choose your response deliberately, or choose not to respond at all. This may feel unnatural at first. That's a sign you are training. Discomfort is not failure. Discomfort is the signal that you are building capacity. Remember this: suppression creates pressure. Reaction creates damage. Control creates freedom. Emotional strength is not about becoming colder. It is about becoming steadier. And steadiness begins the moment you stop fighting your emotions and start leading them. Chapter 3. Building the pause. Between feeling and reaction, there is a small, almost invisible space that separates emotionally reactive people from emotionally unbreakable ones. It is not intelligence. It is not experience. It is not willpower. It is the pause. Most people believe their reactions are automatic, unavoidable, and justified. Something happens, a feeling appears, and words or actions follow instantly. It feels natural, it feels honest, it feels like just being yourself. But what feels natural is often just unexamined habit. The pause is the moment where habit can be interrupted. I learned this lesson the hard way. Years ago, I damaged a relationship that mattered deeply to me, not because of what I felt, but because of how quickly I reacted. A comment landed the wrong way. I felt misunderstood. Without thinking, I defended myself. My tone sharpened. My words escalated. 10 seconds later, the moment had passed, but the damage remained. I replayed that moment for months, wishing I had slowed down for just a few breaths. That 10-second window was the pause I didn't take. Most emotional regret comes from reactions that were too fast. Words spoken before understanding. Decisions made before clarity. Responses driven by emotion instead of values. The tragedy is not that we feel strongly. The tragedy is that we rarely wait. The nervous system is designed for speed. When it perceives threat, it pushes you to react immediately. This was useful when danger was physical and obvious. But in modern life, the threats are psychological. Tone, rejection, criticism, ambiguity. The body reacts as if survival is at stake, even when it isn't. The pause tells the nervous system that you are safe enough to choose. At first, the pause feels uncomfortable. It feels like hesitation. It feels weak. It feels unnatural. That's because you are interrupting a loop that has been running for years. But discomfort is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of training. The pause does not mean doing nothing forever. It means doing nothing briefly. Emotionally unbreakable people are not slow. They are deliberate. They understand that speed without clarity leads to regret, while patience creates power. Think of the pause as a muscle. At first, it is weak. It lasts a second, maybe less. But with repetition, it grows. One breath becomes two. Two becomes 5. Eventually, the pause becomes a default response, not an effort. Inside that pause, something important happens. Perspective returns. When you don't pause, Emotion fills the entire frame. It feels total, absolute. When you pause, the emotion becomes one part of a larger picture. You start to see options instead of impulses. Here is what the pause actually looks like in real life. You feel the urge to respond. Your body tightens. Your mind prepares an explanation, a defense, or an attack. Instead of following that urge, you breathe. You relax your jaw. You notice the sensation without obeying it. This is not suppression. Suppression is pushing emotion away. The pause is holding emotion without acting on it. In that brief space, you can ask a different question. Not, how do I win this moment? But, who do I want to be after this moment? That question changes everything. I once watched a friend use this skill in a situation that would have triggered most people. So he was publicly criticized in a meeting. The room went quiet. You could see the tension in his body. Everyone expected him to defend himself. Instead, he paused. He took a breath. He asked a clarifying question. The tone shifted. The conversation de-escalated. Later, he told me the pause felt like an eternity. To everyone else, it looked like confidence. The pause often feels longer on the inside than it looks on the outside. This is why emotionally unbreakable people are often misunderstood. Others assume they don't feel pressure. In reality, they feel it fully. They simply don't rush. Another benefit of the pause is that it weakens emotional storytelling. When emotions arise, the mind quickly creates a narrative. They don't respect me. I'm being rejected. This always happens. If you react immediately, you act as if that story is true. If you pause, the story loses momentum. Stories collapse under observation. The pause gives you time to separate sensation from interpretation. Feeling tension does not mean danger. Feeling anger does not mean injustice. Feeling fear does not mean failure. These are signals, not commands. To train the pause, you don't need perfect discipline. You need consistency. Start with the smallest possible practice. When something triggers you, delay your response by 3 seconds. That's it. 3 seconds to breathe and notice. You don't need to decide anything in that time. You only need to not react. Those 3 seconds create a crack in the old pattern. Over time, the crack widens. As you practice, you'll notice something surprising. Many reactions dissolve on their own if you don't feed them. The urge fades. The intensity drops. What felt urgent becomes optional. This is where freedom begins. The pause also protects you from emotional manipulation. People can only control your emotions if they can control your reactions. When you pause, you take that power back. You stop being predictable. You stop being easily triggered. This does not mean becoming passive. It means choosing when to engage. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence. Sometimes it is a question. Sometimes it is a boundary. The pause allows you to select the right tool instead of swinging blindly. There will be moments when you forget. You will react. You will say something you regret. That does not erase your progress. Training is not perfection. Training is return. Each time you notice after the fact, you strengthen awareness. Each time you pause even briefly, you strengthen control. Here is your practice for this chapter. For the next few days, commit to one rule. No immediate reactions. When something triggers you, pause for 3 breaths before responding. If you're speaking, slow your words. If you're texting, don't send immediately. If you're thinking, don't conclude immediately. Use the pause to remember who you are, training to become. Because emotional strength is not built in moments of calm, it is built in moments of pressure when the pause feels hardest to take. And the more you practice that pause, the more unbreakable you become. Chapter 4. Stop letting other people control your inner world. Most people believe their emotions are personal. They think what they feel comes from inside them. But if you look closely, you'll notice something uncomfortable. A large part of your emotional life is being controlled from the outside. A tone of voice can ruin your mood. A comment can stay with you all day. Someone else's approval can lift you, and their silence can sink you. This is not because you are weak. It is because at some point, you learn to hand over authority without realizing it. Emotional control is impossible if your inner state depends on other people's behavior. I once knew someone who was intelligent, disciplined, and outwardly confident, yet emotionally exhausted. His mood rose and fell based on how others treated him. Praise energized him. Needs indifference deflated him. Criticism haunted him. He didn't see this as dependence. He saw it as caring. In reality, he had outsourced his emotional stability. This is one of the most common traps. We confuse sensitivity with awareness and dependence with connection. But when other people control your inner world, you're never truly at rest. The core issue is permission. At some point, you give others permission to decide how you feel about yourself. When that happens, every interaction becomes a test. Every conversation carries risk. You are no longer responding to life. You are reacting to perceived evaluation. Emotionally unbreakable people live by a different rule. They do not allow external behavior to dictate internal worth. This does not mean they don't listen. It does not mean they don't care. It means they decide what gets access. There is a critical distinction here. Feedback is information. Judgment is noise. When your mind is untrained, both feel the same. When your mind is trained, you can separate them. Most people never learn this skill. They absorb opinions automatically. They internalize moods that don't belong to them. They carry emotional weight they never agreed to lift. This is why one of the most powerful emotional boundaries is not reacting immediately. When you react, you validate the trigger. You signal that the other person has power over your internal state. When you don't react, you reclaim that power. I once watched a colleague handle an unfair accusation with quiet precision. He didn't argue, he didn't explain, he didn't defend himself emotionally. He acknowledged the concern, stated the facts calmly, and moved on. Later, I asked him how he stayed so composed. He said something simple. "I didn't give it permission to live in my head." That sentence stayed with me. Most emotional suffering is not caused by what people do. It is caused by what we let follow us afterward. When someone criticizes you, the moment itself is brief. But the replay can last hours, days, even years. That replay is optional. It feels automatic, but it is trained behavior. And anything trained can be retrained. Another common mistake is over-explaining. When you feel emotionally threatened, you try to clarify, justify, and prove yourself. You believe that if you explain enough, the discomfort will disappear. But over-explaining is not communication. It is self-defense. Every unnecessary explanation reinforces the belief that your worth requires approval. Emotionally unbreakable people understand this. They speak when it matters. They stay silent when it doesn't. They don't rush to correct every misunderstanding. They don't chase validation. They trust their internal compass more than external reactions. This does not mean becoming cold or distant. It means becoming anchored. Anchoring means deciding in advance what defines you, your values, your effort, your integrity. When those things are clear, opinions lose their grip. One of the most effective ways to stop emotional hijacking is to shift the question you ask yourself. Instead of asking, "What do they think of me?" ask, "Did I act in alignment with my values?" That single shift moves authority back where it belongs. You will still feel emotional reactions. That is human. But feelings no longer get to vote on your identity. Another overlooked aspect of emotional control is recognizing projection. Many emotional attacks are not about you at all. They are expressions of someone else's fear, stress, or insecurity. When your mind is untrained, you absorb those emotions as truth. When your mind is trained, you see them as data. Seeing clearly prevents unnecessary suffering. There will be moments when people misunderstand you, when they judge you unfairly, when they project their issues onto you. Emotional strength is not correcting every false perception. Emotional strength is not letting false perceptions define you. This is where detachment becomes powerful. Detachment does not mean indifference. It means perspective. It means caring without clinging. One of the hardest lessons to accept is this: not everyone needs to understand you, and not every emotion you feel needs to be explained. Freedom comes from choosing where your energy goes. Here is your practice for this chapter. For the next few days, notice when your mood changes because of someone else's behavior. When you feel the urge to explain, defend, or replay an interaction, pause. Ask yourself, did this person earn access to my inner world? Most of the time, the answer is no. Then practice withholding reaction, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. Let the moment pass without chasing closure. This will feel uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is the sound of a boundary being built. Remember this: you cannot control how others act, but you can control what you carry. Emotional unbreakability begins when you stop giving people free access to your inner world and start choosing deliberately what deserves to stay. Chapter 5. Training emotional endurance. Through discomfort. Most people don't break emotionally because something terrible happens. They break because they have trained themselves to avoid discomfort for too long. The moment something feels hard, awkward, or unpleasant, they escape. They distract themselves. They numb themselves. They postpone. And without realizing it, they weaken their emotional endurance. Emotional strength is not built in comfort. It is built in friction. I once had a friend who was intelligent, capable, and full of potential, yet constantly overwhelmed by life. Small setbacks drained him. Minor inconveniences ruined his mood. He wasn't lazy. He wasn't undisciplined. He was simply unfamiliar with discomfort. Whenever something felt difficult, he immediately looked for relief. Over time, his tolerance shrank. And this is how emotional fragility develops. Not through trauma, but through avoidance. Discomfort is often misunderstood as a problem, something to fix, something to escape. But discomfort is not an enemy. It is a training signal. Just like physical resistance strengthens the body, emotional resistance strengthens the mind. When you avoid discomfort, you send a clear message to your nervous system. This is dangerous. The system listens. Next time, it reacts faster, stronger, with more fear. But when you stay with discomfort, you send a different message. I can handle this. Over time, the reaction softens. Emotionally unbreakable people are not fearless. They are familiar with discomfort. They have spent time with it. They have learned that it rises, peaks, and falls if you don't run. This is why comfort is deceptive. It feels safe in the moment, but it trains weakness. Discomfort feels threatening in the moment, but it trains resilience. Think about how often you choose the easier option emotionally. Avoiding a difficult conversation, ignoring a task that creates anxiety, distracting yourself instead of sitting with an uncomfortable feeling. These choices seem small, but they accumulate. Each time you escape discomfort, you reinforce the belief that you cannot tolerate it. Training emotional endurance means reversing that pattern. I learned this lesson when I started doing one uncomfortable thing every day on purpose. Nothing extreme, just deliberate discomfort. Making a difficult call. Saying no when I wanted to please. Sitting with anxiety instead of distracting myself. At first, it felt exhausting. But over time, something shifted. The situations that once felt overwhelming became manageable. Discomfort lost its authority. This training works because emotions follow exposure. The more you face discomfort consciously, the less power it holds. The less familiar you are with discomfort, the louder it becomes. Most emotional reactions are amplified not by intensity, but by unfamiliarity. Emotionally unbreakable people understand this. They don't wait to feel ready. They don't wait for confidence. They act while discomfort is present. That action rewires the nervous system. This does not mean forcing yourself into pain recklessly. It means choosing growth over relief. A simple example is staying present when you feel the urge to escape. The moment you want to check your phone to avoid an uncomfortable thought, pause. Stay with the sensation for a few breaths. Notice how it changes. Often, it weakens on its own. Another example is doing hard things before easy ones. Completing a challenging task before seeking comfort. Speaking up when it feels uncomfortable. Sitting with uncertainty without rushing to resolve it. Each time you do this, you are training endurance. One reason people resist this practice is because discomfort is misunderstood as suffering. But suffering is resistance to discomfort. Discomfort itself is neutral. It becomes painful only when you fight it. Emotionally unbreakable people don't fight discomfort. They allow it, observe it, and move through it. This is also why emotional endurance is deeply tied to discipline. Discipline is not forcing yourself through pain. It is choosing long-term strength over short-term relief. There will be moments when discomfort feels overwhelming. That's normal. Training does not mean pushing beyond your limits. It means stretching them gradually. Start small. Choose discomfort that challenges you without breaking you. Stay with it long enough to prove to yourself that you can survive it. Over time, your emotional baseline changes. What once felt unbearable becomes tolerable. What once triggered panic becomes a signal to slow down, not to escape. This is how confidence is built, not through positive thinking, but through evidence. Evidence that you can face discomfort and remain intact. Here is your practice for this chapter. For the next week, choose one small discomfort each day and face it intentionally. Do not rush through it. Do not distract yourself. Stay present until the intensity passes or changes. Then move on. Write down what you notice. Not how bad it felt, but how it ended. Most people are surprised to discover that discomfort is temporary. Remember this: comfort weakens, discomfort strengthens. Emotional endurance is not about becoming tougher on the outside. It is about becoming steadier on the inside. And the more familiar you become with discomfort, the less anything can truly break you. Chapter 6. Detaching your self-worth from outcomes. One of the most subtle sources of emotional suffering is the way people tie their self-worth to results. Success makes them feel valuable. Failure makes them feel small. Approval feels like confirmation. Rejection feels like a verdict. Over time, life turns into a constant emotional trial, where every outcome seems to decide who they are. This attachment is rarely obvious. It hides behind ambition, responsibility, and the desire to do well. People tell themselves they are just motivated, just driven, just holding high standards. But underneath that drive is often a fragile equation. If I succeed, I am enough. If I fail, I am not. That equation makes emotional stability impossible. I once lived this way without realizing it. Every achievement gave me a temporary high. Every setback felt personal. When things went well, I felt confident and calm. When things didn't, I became tense, self-critical, and restless. I wasn't reacting to events themselves. I was reacting to what I believed those events said about me. That is the trap of outcome-based identity. Outcomes are feedback. They are not definitions, but when the mind is untrained, it treats feedback as identity. A mistake becomes, "I am careless." A rejection becomes, "I am not wanted." A delay becomes, "I am falling behind." The emotional weight doesn't come from what happened. It comes from what it means. Emotionally unbreakable people understand a crucial distinction. They separate effort from outcome and identity from performance. They care deeply about what they do, but they do not let results decide who they are. This is not detachment from life. It is detachment from self-punishment. When you tie your worth to outcomes, you live in a constant state of evaluation. Every task feels heavy. Every decision carries emotional risk. You are never just acting. You are proving, and proving is exhausting. The irony is that this attachment often makes performance worse. Fear tightens focus. Pressure narrows thinking. The need to protect self-worth interferes with learning. You become more reactive, not more effective. Letting go of outcome-based worth creates clarity. This does not mean you stop caring about results. It means you care without collapsing. You measure success by alignment, not applause, by effort, not external validation. I saw this shift clearly in someone close to me who struggled deeply with failure. Any setback would trigger days of self-doubt. Eventually, he began practicing a simple reframing. Instead of asking, "Did I win or lose?" he asked, "Did I show up with integrity?" Over time, his emotional reactions softened. Losses became lessons. Wins became information, not identity. That shift changed everything. Emotionally unbreakable people treat outcomes as data. Useful, sometimes painful, but never personal. They review without judgment. They adjust without self-attack. This mindset requires humility. It means accepting that results are influenced by many factors beyond your control. Timing, other people, circumstances, randomness. When you ignore these realities, you unfairly assign yourself credit or blame for things you didn't fully cause. Detaching self-worth from outcomes does not lower standards. It raises them. Because when fear is removed, honesty becomes possible. You can see mistakes clearly. You can improve faster. You can take risks without emotional paralysis. Another hidden cost of outcome attachment is comparison. When your worth depends on results, other people's success feels threatening. Their progress becomes evidence against you. Their wins feel like your losses. This poisons motivation and erodes peace. Emotionally unbreakable people don't compete for worth. They compete for growth. They understand that progress is personal and non-linear. They allow themselves to be beginners. They allow others to succeed without interpreting it as failure. One practical way to train this detachment is through post-action review. After any meaningful effort, ask yourself 3 questions. Did I prepare honestly? Did I act in alignment with my values? Did I learn something useful? Notice what is missing. There is no question about being enough. Worth is assumed. Improvement is optional. This practice feels unnatural at first because many people were conditioned to earn worth through performance. Praise was conditional. Approval was tied to results. Over time, that conditioning became internal. Rewriting it takes patience. There will be moments when failure still hurts. That does not mean you are doing it wrong. Pain is human. Collapse is optional. Let the feeling exist without turning it into a verdict. Another powerful shift is learning to separate outcomes from intention. You can do everything right and still fail. You can make mistakes and still be worthy. These truths can coexist. Emotionally unbreakable people hold themselves accountable without attacking themselves. They take responsibility without humiliation. They correct without condemning. This creates resilience. Not the loud kind, but the quiet kind that allows you to stand back up without drama. Here is your practice for this chapter. For the next few days, after any result that triggers emotion, pause and label it as feedback. Not good or bad, just information. Then ask, what can this teach me? And stop there. No self-judgment, no identity statements. You may notice resistance, a voice that wants to turn feedback into criticism. Notice it. Don't follow it. Remember this. You are more than your outcomes. Always have been. When self-worth is no longer on the line, pressure loses its grip. Fear softens, clarity returns, and paradoxically, some performance improves. Detaching your self-worth from outcomes does not make you careless. It makes you unbreakable. Chapter 7. Reprogramming your inner dialogue. Every emotion you experience is filtered through a voice you rarely question. It speaks quietly, constantly, and convincingly. It comments on what happens. It interprets meaning. It decides what something says about you. That voice is your inner dialogue, and whether you realize it or not, it shapes your emotional life more than any external event ever could. Most people assume this voice is simply them, natural, accurate, objective. But in reality, it is trained, and like any trained system, it can be retrained. I once noticed this voice during a difficult period of my life. On the surface, nothing dramatic was happening, but inside, the commentary was relentless. Every mistake became evidence. Every delay became a failure. Every quiet moment became a judgment. I wasn't reacting to reality. I was reacting to the way I was speaking to myself about reality. That realization was uncomfortable. It meant I couldn't blame circumstances anymore, but it was also freeing. Because if the voice was learned, it could be changed. Your inner dialogue is not truth. It is habit. Most emotional suffering is not caused by what happens, but by what the inner voice says immediately afterward. A neutral event becomes personal. A setback becomes a verdict. A moment of uncertainty becomes a prediction of failure. This happens so fast that it feels automatic. Emotionally unbreakable people are not immune to negative thoughts. They simply don't treat them as commands. The inner voice often sounds authoritative, but authority does not equal accuracy. Many of the things it says are outdated, exaggerated, or borrowed from other people's expectations. And criticism from the past becomes guidance in the present. Fear becomes advice. If you don't challenge this voice, it will run unchecked. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to stop asking, "Is this thought true?" and start asking, "Is this thought useful?" Many thoughts feel true because they are familiar. That does not mean they help you move forward. I saw this clearly in a friend who struggled with self-doubt despite being highly capable. His inner dialogue was harsh and absolute. "I always mess this up. I'm behind. Everyone else knows what they're doing." None of these statements were fully accurate, but he repeated them so often they felt factual. Over time, his confidence eroded, not because of failure, but because of constant internal attack. The mind believes what it hears repeatedly. Reprogramming inner dialogue does not mean replacing every negative thought with forced positivity. That rarely works. The mind resists what feels dishonest. Instead, the goal is to replace distortion with precision. Instead of, "I'm terrible at this," you learn to say, "I'm still learning." Instead of, "This always goes wrong," you say, "This part is difficult right now." These are not affirmations, they are corrections. Emotionally unbreakable people speak to themselves like a coach, not a critic. A good coach does not ignore mistakes. They name them clearly, without humiliation. They correct behavior without attacking identity. This is a skill. And like all skills, it feels unnatural at first. Another important shift is recognizing tone. The same words can have different emotional impact depending on how they are delivered internally. A calm, neutral observation produces clarity. A sharp, accusatory tone produces shame. Shame shuts down learning. if your inner voice sounds like someone you would never allow to speak to you out loud, it needs retraining. This does not happen by silencing the voice. Suppression doesn't work here either. It happens by responding to it differently. When a harsh thought appears, don't argue with it aggressively. That keeps you engaged in the same pattern. Instead, acknowledge it and reframe it. That's one interpretation. That's fear talking. That thought is familiar, not helpful. This creates distance. Distance weakens emotional charge. Another powerful technique is changing the perspective of the inner voice. Instead of speaking in the first person, imagine advising someone you care about. Most people are far more reasonable, patient, and constructive when guiding others. That same tone can be learned internally. You don't need to be kind to yourself in a sentimental way. You need to be fair. Emotionally unbreakable people understand that self-talk shapes emotional climate. If the climate is hostile, everything feels harder. If it is stable, challenges become manageable. This is why inner dialogue matters most during pressure. When things go wrong, the voice often becomes louder and harsher. Training yourself to notice and adjust it in those moments is where real change happens. At first, you will notice the voice after it has already spoken. That's normal. Awareness comes after habit. Over time, you will catch it sooner. Eventually, you will anticipate it. Repetition is the key, not perfection. Another mistake people make is believing they must eliminate negative thoughts entirely. That is not the goal. Thoughts will arise. What matters is whether you identify with them. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who hears them. That distinction changes everything. Here is your practice for this chapter. For the next few days, pay attention to your inner dialogue during moments of discomfort. Don't try to stop it. Write down one recurring phrase you notice, then rewrite it in a way that is accurate, calm, and constructive. Not optimistic, not dramatic, just useful. Use that rewritten phrase consistently, and over time, the emotional tone of your inner world will shift. Remember this: the voice you listen to most becomes the voice that leads you. If you train your inner dialogue with patience and clarity, your emotions will follow. And when your inner world becomes steadier, fewer things from the outside will be able to break you. Chapter 8. Living as an emotionally unbreakable person. Becoming emotionally unbreakable is not a single breakthrough moment. It is not a mindset you adopt once and keep forever. It is a way of living that is built through repetition, through small daily choices that slowly reshape who you are under pressure. Many people reach the end of a journey like this and ask the wrong question. They ask, "How do I stay this way?" As if emotional strength were a fragile state that could be lost overnight. The better question is, who am I practicing being every day? Emotionally unbreakable people do not rely on motivation. They rely on identity. They no longer see emotional control as something they do only when life is calm. It becomes part of how they move through the world, how they listen, how they speak, to how they respond when things don't go their way. I once watched someone close to me change in a way that was almost invisible at first. There was no dramatic transformation, no sudden confidence. But over months, his reactions softened. He stopped explaining himself so much. He paused more. He recovered faster. When things went wrong, he didn't spiral. When things went right, he didn't cling. The difference wasn't talent. It was consistency. He had stopped chasing emotional stability and started practicing emotional discipline. Living as an emotionally unbreakable person means accepting that emotions will always show up. Stress will appear. Disappointment will happen. People will misunderstand you. Plans will fail. None of that changes. What changes is your relationship with those moments. Instead of asking, "Why do I feel this way?" you ask, "What is required of me right now?" That shift moves you from reaction to responsibility. One of the most important aspects of emotional unbreakability is recovery. Strong people are not those who never fall apart. They are those who recover without self-destruction. They don't punish themselves for feeling. They don't dramatize setbacks. They return to center faster. Recovery is a skill. When you practice emotional control daily, setbacks become shorter. A bad moment becomes a bad hour instead of a bad day. A bad day becomes a lesson instead of a collapse. This is not because emotions disappear, but because they are no longer fed. Another defining trait of emotionally unbreakable people is restraint. They don't react to everything. They don't comment on every trigger. They don't correct every misunderstanding. They understand that energy is finite, and they protect it carefully. This restraint is not fear-based. It is intentional. They choose when to engage and when to let things pass. They understand that silence can be strength, and that not every emotion needs expression. They are selective, not suppressed. This selectivity creates calm authority. Living this way also means accepting that progress is not linear. There will be days when old patterns resurface, when you react faster than you wanted to, when you feel pulled back into familiar emotional loops. This is not failure. This is feedback. Emotionally unbreakable people don't panic when this happens. They notice it. They correct. They continue. They don't ask for perfection from themselves. They ask for honesty. And another shift that defines this way of living is the relationship with time. When emotions are untrained, everything feels urgent. Responses feel immediate. Decisions feel final. When emotions are trained, urgency fades. You remember that feelings pass, situations evolve, and clarity returns if you allow space. This patience changes how you make decisions. You stop reacting to pressure and start responding to reality. Daily practices matter here. Not dramatic rituals, but simple anchors. A moment of pause before responding. A review at the end of the day without judgment. A conscious decision to sit with discomfort instead of escaping it. These practices compound quietly. Over time, something important happens. You begin to trust yourself. Not because life becomes easy, but because you know you can handle it. That trust is the foundation of emotional unbreakability. When you trust your ability to respond wisely, fear loses its grip. You stop trying to control everything. You stop needing constant reassurance. You stop overthinking outcomes. You become steady. Emotionally unbreakable people also understand boundaries differently. They don't build walls. They build clarity. They know what they are responsible for and what they are not. They don't take on other people's emotions as their own. They don't carry guilt for setting limits. This clarity creates freedom. Another often overlooked aspect of this identity is humility. Emotional strength does not mean believing you are above emotion. It means accepting that you are human without letting humanity become an excuse for chaos. You allow yourself to feel, but you don't allow feelings to drive. As you live this way, others will notice. Some will feel calmer around you. Some will feel challenged. Some may even resist the change because your steadiness highlights their reactivity. This is normal. Emotional strength does not require approval. You're not responsible for how others interpret your growth. Living as an emotionally unbreakable person also means redefining success. Success becomes responding with integrity, maintaining self-respect under pressure, choosing long-term peace over short-term validation. This kind of success is quiet. It doesn't announce itself, but it lasts. Here is a simple framework to carry forward. Each day, return to 3 questions. Did I pause when I felt triggered? Did I act in alignment with my values? Did I recover without self-attack? These questions keep you grounded. They keep training active. You will never eliminate emotion. You will never reach a point where nothing affects you. That is not the goal. The goal is to become someone who is affected without being controlled. Someone who can feel deeply and remain steady. Someone who can face pressure without losing themselves. That is what it means to live as an emotionally unbreakable person. And the truth is, you don't become that person one day in the future. You become them every day you choose awareness over reaction, patience over impulse, and responsibility over excuse. This is not an end. It is a way of being. As we come to the end of this audiobook, take a moment to pause. Not to analyze, not to judge. Just to notice where you are right now compared to where you were when you started listening. Nothing dramatic needs to have changed. Awareness alone is already progress. Over the past hour, we explored a simple but demanding idea. Emotional strength is trained, not given. You learned how emotional weakness often hides behind normal behavior. You saw why suppressing emotions doesn't create control, but pressure. You learned how the pause between feeling and reaction gives you back your power. You discovered how much of your inner world is shaped by other people's behavior and how to reclaim that authority. You learned why discomfort is not the enemy, but the training ground. You separated your self-worth from outcomes, challenged your inner dialogue, and finally stepped into what it means to live as an emotionally unbreakable person. None of these ideas are meant to impress you. They are meant to be practiced. Emotional strength does not come from understanding concepts once. It comes from repetition, from pausing when you want to react, from sitting with discomfort instead of escaping it, from choosing your response instead of defending your feelings, from speaking to yourself with clarity instead of criticism. These are small actions, but they compound quietly. If you try to do everything at once, you will burn out. Instead, choose one thing, just one. Maybe it's the pause. Maybe it's not over-explaining. Maybe it's noticing your inner dialogue. Practice that one thing for the next few days. Let it become familiar. Let it become part of how you move through pressure. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to eliminate emotion. You don't need to be perfect. You only need to stop letting untrained emotions run your life. There will be days when you forget. Days when you react faster than you wanted to. Days when old patterns return. That is not failure. That is feedback. Emotional training is not about never falling back. It is about recovering without self-attack and returning to awareness faster each time. If you take this seriously, something subtle will change. Situations that once overwhelmed you will feel manageable. Comments that once ruined your day will pass more quickly. Pressure will still exist, but it will no longer define you. And slowly, quietly, you will begin to trust yourself again. That trust is the real reward. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for listening with intention, and more importantly, thank you for being willing to look inward instead of blaming outward. That willingness alone sets you apart. If this audiobook helped you, don't let it end here. Revisit it, practice it, let the ideas settle into action. And if you know someone in your life who is struggling emotionally, someone who feels overwhelmed, reactive, or quietly breaking under pressure, share this video with them. It might be exactly what they need to begin changing their life. I'll see you in the next video.